the Hollywood actor with those very famous blue eyes. He was a hustler, a drunk, an outlaw.
I think we lost him.
A con man.
310.
Paul Newman was, in every sense of the word, a star.
Don't bluff her on, Ann.
Paul Newman arrived on the scene in the early 50s, about the same time Marlon Brando, James Dean, Montgomery Clift. He came from that generation of method actors who made a huge impact in films.
And what an impact it was. In a career which spanned more than 5 decades, Paul Newman starred in more than 60 films.
No, you didn't remember his birthday?
I didn't remember.
Well, you don't have to
In
prove it, Newman.
1958, he co-starred with Elizabeth Taylor in Cat on a Hot Tin
You've
Roof.
got to.
I don't have to do anything I don't want to. Now, you keep forgetting the conditions on which I agreed to stay on living with you.
I'm not living with you. We occupy the same cage, that's all.
And in 1961, he played the role of Fast Eddie in The Hustler, a role which the critics claim was his greatest performance.
I mean, how can I lose? Because you were right, Bert. I mean, it's not enough that you just have talent. You got to have character, too.
I think he's electric in The Hustler.
I felt in that film, for the first time, he really found an emotional depth to the character.
I'm shooting pool, Fats. When I miss, you can shoot.
He was critical of the performance years afterwards, saying he was still trying too hard. But I think he was genuinely hurt when he didn't win the Academy Award for that role.
Away from the screen, Paul Newman had married actress Joanne Woodward. Woodward was his second wife. When they met, he was already married and had 3 children. But his relationship with Woodward was set to last. They had 3 daughters together, and at the time of his death, had been married for 50 years.
He said that Woodward had always given him unconditional support, even when she disapproved of his choices, especially with regard to motor racing, which she hated. And he said, to me, that's love, and perhaps that sums up the whole relationship.
By the end of the 60s, Newman had become a Hollywood sex symbol, mobbed whenever he appeared in public. It was a side of the business he loathed, once claiming that being good-looking was a curse.
He was also the sort of person who felt that looks didn't really count for much. He cared more about his work as an actor. I think he was very serious about his work as an actor, although he wasn't averse to larking about in films.
Raindrops are falling on my head.
In 1969, Paul Newman appeared in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, arguably his best-loved film. It was also the start of an acting partnership with fellow heartthrob Robert Redford, who would go on to appear with Newman in The Sting and Slapshot.
I felt Redford was miscasting as the Sundance Kid initially, until they actually got into seriously rehearsing the film. And they stayed, genuine friends, which I think is rare in Hollywood.
He really was a practical, down-to-earth, honest guy.
In 1983, Australian cinematographer Don McAlpine worked with Paul Newman on the film Harry and Son. Newman directed and starred in the movie. It was the start of a long friendship between the two men.
Paul really tried very, very hard to remain part of a real world. I think he was terrified, having seen so many of his friends sort of evaporate into stardom, that he really fought hard against that.
But if it was rare for this Hollywood star to be grounded and down to earth, the next phase of his life was even more unusual. In the 1980s, he ventured into the commercial world of salad dressings and pasta sauces as a way of making money for charities.
Right from the word go, he was determined that when he started giving money away, that he'd give it away to the most vulnerable.
I think he always believed that if you're privileged, if you have something other people don't, then you should, hold your hand out to help them out.
Just don't put the money in the bank, kid.
As the years passed, the demand for Paul Newman on the big screen never stopped. Although he'd been nominated 6 times, it wasn't until 1986 that he was
Makes you so
finally
sure.
awarded an Oscar for his performance alongside Tom Cruise in The Colour of Money, a sequel to The Hustler.
I'm back.
He compared it to chasing a beautiful woman for sort of 50 years or 80 years even, and finally, at the end, she relents, and you have to say, sorry, I'm tired.
This is the life we chose, the life we
Paul
lead.
Newman's last screen appearance
There is
was
only
playing another bad guy
one
in The Road to
guarantee.
Perdition.
None of us will see heaven.
I think it was a worthy swan song for him.